What's going on, everybody? This is the Blockchain Backer, bringing you the latest cryptocurrency news and analysis. Today, we're going to be talking about the XRP price chart, the Bitcoin price chart, the altcoin market, and really just the state of the market with where we're at, highlighting a couple of things that I wrote about in my newsletter that was put out over the weekend that I worked on really all last week to paint a picture of this market with where Bitcoin is right now, how Ethereum is reacting off these lows, what's going on with XRP in here, and the state of sentiments throughout the cryptocurrency market that we're seeing a lot of things that we typically exhibit after liquidations take place. And it's all just looking really like normal stuff happening out here. And so in this video, I really wanted to kind of highlight a few different things going on in the market. One, the reaction that we saw after the liquidation and the positive things that are going on in the market after that happened. With that, also talking about what typically happens with sentiment. I don't know if you recall, but just the day after, the second day after we had that liquidation, I said what typically ends up coming in the coming weeks is that we see sentiment start to deteriorate rapidly. Here we are. We're 2 weeks removed from that event. Have you gone onto crypto Twitter lately? Now, if you're in the XRP community, that's totally not the case. Things have been fine over here. But in the rest of the market, especially with Solana, especially in the Solana trenches, the meme coins, everything like that, that's crazy. So we'll talk about that stuff. I want to discuss what's going on over here with Bitcoin and my thoughts, kind of a little bit of a recap of things we did talk about at the end of last week. But we're obviously in a very complicated range happening here for Bitcoin. And then I just kind of want to just chat and talk about, are we at a pivotal turning point here when it comes to the meme coins and, converting back to like altcoins that don't have a lot of the problems that meme coins do? Because if you missed it throughout the weekend, there was something called Libra. That was an Argentina coin that was launched. The thing utterly crashed in terrible epic form and was backed by the president of Argentina. Dave Portnoy told his story about the coin and how he was actually an insider who was allocated coins to promote the coin. He did say that he returned the coins, but it painted a real dark picture of what it's like trading meme coins over there on the Solana network. And then CoffeeZilla released a video last night where he interviewed the guy who was in charge of releasing the Libra coin and how this guy was even in charge of the Melania coin and how much insider trading happens when these things are launched, how there's such a huge disadvantage for people in meme coins on the Solana network with how many calls get allocations ahead of time, how many people have information ahead of time, the snipers, the insider trading, the things that happen on these coin launches that has seemed to have completely deteriorated the allurement of even wanting to trade anything over there on the Solana network right now. And like I mentioned earlier, and like I've been saying for the last 2 weeks, that sentiment would deteriorate in here, but we're watching a rapid deterioration happen over there in the meme coin market and happen over there with Solana. But XRP people, of course, are just over here like just living their best life, watching the show from the sidelines, right? So we'll spend some time talking about Bitcoin in here. We're going to talk about how the market reacted in here. We're talking about how it's normal for sentiment to behave the way that it is right now. And then we'll just kind of like touch topics on the things of the meme coins. Is that going to end up being some type of transition happening over there to the broader market and people are going to stop playing in these trenches for a little while as the game seems to be completely rigged by both insiders and influencers? Which, if you've known my stance on it, even in markets in the morning, I like absolutely to refuse to even discuss a meme coin because I don't want that perception to be out there about me. Because I've always assumed that this is what happens out there. I've always assumed there is massive allocations that go to these influencers ahead of time, and that eventually this S was going to hit the fan with all this type of stuff. And I didn't want to have my name associated with any even perception that could possibly be a case with me, which is why you never hear me talk about meme coins. And anytime somebody brings one up in markets in the morning, I'm like, nope. Because now it's questioned on anybody who talks about any type of meme coins. Are they an undisclosed promoter who got a pre-allocation, right? Because Dave Portnoy made it clear he got about $25 million if he would have done it, if he would have promoted it. He got sent the coins and everything. So, okay, let's get on topic. We're way too far into this video with me not even talking about anything yet. But I think those were important things to talk about, right? We've seen this huge liquidation happen in the market in the last couple of weeks. It was expected that sentiment would start to rapidly deteriorate. We saw a major rug pull happen this weekend that involved the president of Argentina. Let's be real. Those rug pulls happen all the time. It's not something unusual. But for some reason, this one in particular was the one that just kind of like broke the camel's back, right? And why is that? It's because sentiment has reached that kind of extreme level where people are out for blood because the sentiment is so bad rather than just turning a blind eye. Everybody's done. They've given up. Sentiment has hit a breaking point. And so that's important to make note of because of the things we're going to talk about in this video of sentiment hitting a breaking point, because that's what we would expect to happen in here after such a high volume event. It happens every single time that we've had these liquidations, and especially when we see these signs show up here in the market of the high volume where we have the extreme sell volume followed by the extreme buy volume, which has marked bottoms in all 5 past circumstances that this has happened. But the thing that was very consistent after each one of these is just like the weeks after that, sentiment got really rough. And so it's not unusual. So, right. And the reason I bring it up is because it's really easy to fall into that trap where everyone around you is like, it's over, man. That's because that's what happens every time. Right. So I'm going to talk about a couple of things over here on Bitcoin. I've made it pretty clear. I'm really not sure with Bitcoin. We're in this range. Is this a distribution range, or is there going to be another parabola to shoot its way up? I'll talk about both of those things that I'm looking at right now. I also highlighted those in the newsletter that I put out throughout the weekend. We're going to talk all about this high volume stuff that happens in here. Again, we talked a little bit about that on Friday, but I think it's important to reiterate it as we go into the new week. We'll talk about my thoughts here with XRP for the coming weeks. Again, make no mistake about it. My thoughts are that's the future. My thoughts are that's the bottom. The discussions we just have to have in here is how can this thing look in here before that goes? And then we'll just kind of talk about, have we actually reached the breaking point with altcoin sentiment? If you were here in 2024, and at the end of 2023, you'll recall that we had Wyckoff accumulation and the market rampaged back to the 702 retracement here for the altcoin market. I'm writing newsletters about it. I'm putting it out there in every video. I'm talking about it on Twitter. Like, oh boy, here we are. Danger, danger. And the sentiment in the market was out for blood for anybody who was potentially bearish at that price level or worried about that price level. Essentially, they wanted to take you out to the town square and chuck rocks at you. Not welcome here. The irrational exuberance and the excitement reached an extreme there, an emotional extreme. We tend to always see that when we get back to these retracement levels of sentiment extremes happen when we get there. Well, as we know, that's just where we just got to right now here for the Bitcoin dominance and for the safety trade dominance. They've gotten back to these 702 retracement levels, and we are reaching these sentiment extremes. Again, if you're an XRP holder, you're like, I don't know what you're talking about, man. I'm over here living my best life. And I would say this has been such a fascinating story over here for XRP and for things like Tron and Binance Coin that have gotten back to these highs. And you got XRP and you got Tron above their 2021 highs, but that you've got this Bitcoin dominance up in here, right? And so like, if you're going to try to trade the Bitcoin dominance versus XRP, it would have been an utter disaster, right? Because even with the Bitcoin dominance getting back up in here, XRP has gone above 2021. And that's just been fascinating. And I know the majority of my audience is XRP people. So like when I'm talking about these things, like it doesn't fully resonate with everybody who watches my channel, but it's important to talk about just from a whole market perspective, because it's highly unlikely the next run up in XRP isn't going to occur during a moment where the whole market is running. Like XRP's gotten up in here and it's done a really good job maintaining itself up in here, but it hasn't really gotten to be able to like, shoot on and continue another move as this whole market has stalled at the same time, right? It's really been hovering in these price levels since the beginning of December, which is really what the rest of the market has done too. We've just held up incredibly well. So at 8 minutes into this thing and this video already just being bouncing all over the place, let's get to what I'm supposed to be talking about in here. And that's Bitcoin, right? This was talked about in last week's video. Of course, we know this range has still just continued happening in here. I think the thing that is still just really debatable in here is whether or not this is going to end up being distribution that lasts for a while in here, where the altcoin market does rampage now that we've got the Bitcoin dominance hitting that 702 retracement, and that we just see a lot of action happen all throughout these periods through here. That is what we ended up seeing happen over in this time period over in here, is that this was the point in which the dominance just kind of collapsed all the way through the remainder of that distribution phase happening over there. Coming off of a 702 retracement, does that seem possible? It definitely seems possible to me. However, I have an alternate idea as well at the exact same time, and it stems back to a video that was posted on December 6th of 2021 titled "The Bear Strikes the Bitcoin Price Chart." In this video, I had presented 3 different ideas I had on how the bear market could play play out for Bitcoin, but ultimately that we were going to see prices fall down drastically here for Bitcoin at the top was already in. The thing that was just unknown was what type of structure is it going to play out in here? Are we going to see an alt season show up in here, which obviously did not. But one of the ideas was that we would just end up seeing something of like a double bounce that would take place at the lows, and then prices would kind of just crash on through. And well, as we all know now, that is what ended up happening in here. Prices bounced off the lows and then crumbled right on through the floor, which was the idea presented in the third scenario in there for how the bear market could look for Bitcoin when this was posted back on December 6th of 2021. Now, the concept of this idea was that eventually it would recover. There's been a lot of mixed signals along the way. I get it. Whether or not we're just going to end up getting a retracement, go to new highs, it's been very complicated. But when this original idea was thought through of something like this being able to happen, it was based off correction styles that are similar to this, in which price sets this new high, it falls back to the low, double bounces, and then capitulates in here. That was the concept of the whole thing happening in here. And that when these style of moves happen, they can go on to recover and then go on to set a new high. But that does end up being kind of the lights out moment in there. But if you were to kind of assume, just where we are right now in price action, based off of an idea that was from back in 2021, that we would do this and then plunge to the lows, where would we be right now? Well, we know that we would have already taken out the previous high, right? And that technically speaking, likely somewhere in something like that right now, in which here's our little double bounce, here's our breakdown, there's the break of the high. And essentially, we kind of have to be somewhere right in here, right? Conceptually, that's the whole idea of where you are. Notice as we got back to the highs, there's an ABC. Notice back at the highs, there's an ABC. There becomes a clean, strong, aggressive breakout. We get a clean, strong, aggressive breakout. And if you were to assume that you're somewhere like that, well, then you could think to yourself, hey, there could be one more parabolic leg that's going to be coming in here for Bitcoin. That's a stark difference from the thing that we just talked about a couple of minutes ago, where we're talking about distribution, right? And like we're halfway through, you could see the dominance fall during distribution. But instead, what we're talking about is that, there could still be one more big push happening here for Bitcoin. Ignore the price levels that are drawn on here. That was freehand squiggling. But I don't think it's entirely irrational to think that that could be coming here in the market in the coming months. And that there could still be a dip that ends up happening in here for Bitcoin that quickly recovers itself to then finally go on to the parabola. And this is how we end up ending off the market. This is how the altcoin market rampages. This is how everything goes into that crazy euphoric moment all at the same time. Now, what's something you'd be looking for to be happening at the same time as that occurring? You're probably seeing the Russell 2000 breakout, right? We're finally probably seeing that rotation happening throughout the stock market where the breadth is opening up, the RTY setting the new high, but it's just like 1999, right? But I thought it was important to revisit this because I brought it up in a video. I brought it up in a live stream again to say, hey, there was things that we talked about in that video when the bear strikes, the Bitcoin price chart from back in 2021. And one of the ideas was us not having really an alt season, which I didn't think this was probable. I didn't think that at the time, I didn't think this was realistic, that it was going to end up happening. But of course, the least probable one ended up being it. But to understand what that idea was and, what would have come after that, and when that idea was presented, it was based off this concept in here, where there's this new high that gets set in here that then falls all the way back down to these lows and then just goes down to below, right? That's what we saw over here, right? We take out the high, comes back down to the lows, double bounces, and comes below, right? That's really all the exact same stuff. Then we shift up to the highs, ABC, ABC, a clean break through the high, and then that's where you're at, right? You're sitting there, consolidating in there, extremely complicated range. How are you going to get out of here with one last parabola on the horizon, right? The blow off top, right? Of course, like people's sentiment is kind of like skewed a little bit on wondering, can you even get a blow off top? Because we didn't get a blow off top back in 2021. But the reality is, even in here, for this type of structure, you don't get a blow off top. That's not what happens in these types of things, is a blow off top. The blow off top comes over here, and that this actually isn't in any way unusual. And that even if you're like, well, this wasn't a blow off top happening in here like that one was, well, it's not like we can't see that happening in the market, because it did happen like that over here for Ethereum, where there's the parabola that comes in here and then it just gets annihilated, sets the new high, double bounce, boom, right? Sets the high, double bounce, boom. But you don't actually get the parabola until a later stage. So it kind of puts that into context a little bit. And so essentially trying to solve the puzzle in here, well, if this isn't going to end up being distribution like we saw for Bitcoin back in here, but if it's actually the setup to go for that, then what can we be looking for in here? And I think it's still really challenging because what would you be looking for? You'd probably be looking for some type of liquidation event to happen in here, right? But we just saw liquidation already happen throughout the crypto market. So if we're going to end up seeing Bitcoin do something, well, is the market going to set itself up first before that can occur? And maybe that's why we're seeing stuff happening over here for Ethereum. We're seeing things already show up in here for XRP, that it's kind of setting itself up for this type of moment, which I talked about in last week's video, that if Bitcoin's going to break down and do that thing where it just wicks down to the downside, the altcoins already getting themselves positioned for that moment to end up coming. And I think that's possible too. But the more time I spend in this and the more time I think about it, I just, I can't rule it out that this isn't what's happening in here. I can tell you, no questions asked, if we get a parabola to show up in here for Bitcoin to come out of here at this point, unfortunately, you're going to see the bearish blockchain backer become extremely prevalent in that moment. Now, I think we'll see this thing fall, so it'll be a while before that guy ends up showing up. But I will think that we are at end of cycle, and I'm talking big time end of cycle, and that it all connects to the things that we've talked about: a rotational top over there for the Russell 2000 versus big tech and the larger equity indexes, and that Bitcoin's only been around since the beginning of the great financial crisis, right? It's been in an up only environment entirely. Like if that ends up being true with the Russell 2000 and equity markets, a rotational top, it's a 1999 bubble style pop event happening in here. What do you think is going to happen for Bitcoin? I think that's completely on the table in there. But I could imagine, I really could imagine that we are actually in this phase right in here for Bitcoin at this exact moment in time. And so we'll elaborate on that more in the coming days, but this video is already getting pretty long, and I got a couple other things I want to talk about in here, and I know I can't make this thing too long. And I've already rambled way too much in this video. It's President's Day. I got the kids home. I got a lot of distractions, so I got a lot of things going on in my head. I'm just trying to throw it all out here right now on just things kind of going on in my mind as we're starting off the new week. But the big things heading into this week, right? Like just in general with where we are at right now. Obviously, Ethereum's having a pretty decent morning here right now, and so is the broader cryptocurrency market. But the big thing to pay attention to is what happened there a couple of weeks ago was the high volume event that came in there and the buying volume that ended up coming out of there. This was something that was also discussed in the newsletter in there and things that we've talked about here on the channel before. But when you're looking for reversals to show up in markets, you're looking for unusually high volume to show up. And many times you're just looking for liquidations to happen in there. But even here, this is Bitcoin from back in 2019. You can see how the top comes in with exceptionally high volume, right? We had not seen any type of volume like that on the whole way up from the lows at $3,000, getting all the way back up to almost $14,000. Then the daily buy volume is monstrous, following by monstrous sell volume. That marks the actual top. That's very typical for reversals to happen. And then when the bottom comes in, exceptionally high sell volume followed by exceptionally high buy volume. We essentially refer back to this every time we see a liquidation happen in the market, whether it was August of 2023, August 5th of 2024, so just 6 months ago, or here we are right now when we're looking for those types of behaviors to happen. Did we see the high sell volume followed by the big buy volume, right? And well, that's what we have happening in here. Exceptionally high sell volume followed by exceptionally high buy volume. These are the typical things that we do see happen in reversals. But the thing that happens every single time that we have these liquidations, and I challenge anybody who's been here for a year, you've gone through at least one of these. If you've been here for 2 years, you've been through 2 of them. If you've been here 3 years, you've been through 3 of them. What happened every single time these major liquidation events happened? Sentiment went in the gutter for the weeks afterwards, right? So you look around and you think about the sentiment, you say, hey, this is normal. This is actually usually how bottoms end up getting formed in here, is because the sentiment does this after a liquidation occurs, right? Again, XRP holders, you have no idea what I'm talking about right now because everything's great at $2.72. But for the rest of the market, right, this is what we look for to happen in here. So these are really positive signs for the altcoin market to, one, not only see the extreme, right, I don't know how to express that anymore, that we hit the 702 retracement on the Bitcoin dominance and we see a liquidation that's 4 to 5 times bigger than anything we've ever seen before. 4 to 5 times bigger than FTX collapse, 4 to 5 times bigger than the C19 collapse. And it happens right when you hit the 702 retracement on the dominance, and then the volume comes in and buys it up. Go reflect all the other past liquidations events of what happens after those moments occur. What does the market end up doing? It recovers from these things, right? So we have that at our tailwind, right? So that's a great thing to have happen in there. And I challenge you to go through a lot of the charts throughout the cryptocurrency market, and you're going to find this everywhere. So I'm very optimistic of things moving forward on like how I can envision things. I'm like, all right, look, I see this in here that we just had this huge liquidation event that's the biggest ever. It happens at the 702 retracement for the dominance. The buy volume came in and bought the thing up, as we typically see for reversals to happen after those types of liquidations occur. It's sprinkled everywhere throughout the market. And then I'm over here looking at XRP, and it's still just following along exactly on the things that we've been looking for it to do in here. And prices are still maintaining themselves and acting how we would want them to behave in here. So, when it comes to time, the thing that everybody wants to know the answer to, very difficult in here. I still imagine that XRP is going to push a little bit higher in here. And, by all means, I hope we don't come here. Let's just go for the break and everything is fine and we're all moved on with our lives and the XRP community is singing Kumbaya. But I also have to be kind of realistic on my thoughts of what happened in here, and that I think there's still probably a push up in here, and whether it's here or here, where the struggle ends up coming in, that it's typical in these formats that this is how things end up going, and then you go for the big push and break on out of here. So I see this in the future. This is what I'm excited about. I just think we probably still have a couple weeks in here. And by all means, surprise me. Go for the high. If we take out the high in here, I will not think that. I will not think that it's coming back down in here. I'll negate that out really quick and think that it's probably just going to be something more along the lines of that. But I do still stick with it that I think this is the most probable outcome that we're working on right now. And that I do find it realistic that we could see parabolic price action come in the cryptocurrency market in the coming months, and including potentially even over here in Bitcoin. The things that I take from this and my observations of just looking at the charts is kind of reflecting back on how things have behaved in the past, where we typically will see like a 702 retracement come out of Bitcoin and the altcoins are rampaging into that moment. That's not typically what you end up getting in here. So I'm just kind of like laying the foundation on that. If we see the parabola show up in here and we see crypto rampaging up at the same time and the dominance falling at the exact same time, to not be kind of thinking that, there could be a second alt season that comes with the retracement. I don't know. That's a conversation for way out in the future. But things I just do want to point out to you is that we get the dominance to hit the 702 retracement with a liquidation event 4 to 5 times bigger than anything we've ever seen in the market. It comes off the heels of extreme volume on both sides, the exact way you would look for reversal volume to happen. And then, like you're seeing over there, you're seeing sentiment deteriorate rapidly. And I think that's completely normal. And you go reflect on any liquidation that you've been through, whether it was August 5th of last year, August of 2023, the FTX collapse, C19, all of them. Reflect back on it. What was the sentiment afterwards? Sentiment was, it's over, right? But we've got the volume profiles that we would want to see to say, it's not. So I think the thing I'm real curious about is just what's going to end up happening in like the Solana meme coin arena happening in here. I think people are utterly done with this. And that may just be a reflection of this finally happening, right? It's just been kind of meme coin has been just the thing, right? The whole way up in here. Is this now the turning point? Did we just, from a sentiment perspective, reach the turning point where people are just going to be like, there's too many insiders, there's too many Coles receiving allocations that aren't disclosing it. The game is rigged. And to be frank, the casino rigged. And welcome back. Welcome back to the altcoins. I think it's possible. Again, I don't really view this Libra thing as anything different. It's just a typical rug pull that we see happen every single day, thousands of times over there. But I think we've seen the meme coin arena get slaughtered so hard that it was just the actual real breaking point. So is it a turning point? It might be. So we'll develop this idea more in the coming days and weeks over here for Bitcoin. Again, volume profiles are fantastic throughout the cryptocurrency market of what reversals typically are marked by. I think we're going to be in here for just a minute for XRP, but I do think this thing is going to rampage to the upside once the range gets broken. I do think that's the low. And really the idea is that I'm foreshadowing are that those are actually the lows. We won't go below those. Now we may revisit them, but not break them down. And that as we have all these events happen in here, it happens at the point of time, like we talked about, where we showed the altcoin market in March of 2024, which it reached its extreme. Here we are reaching this extreme. And then we hit the extreme liquidation, buy volume, and the extreme death and destruction of the meme coin arena. I don't know. Seems like a turning point to me. And I think Dave Portnoy revealing how these Coles or key opinion leaders receiving these allocations and knowing about these launches ahead of time put a pretty gross taste in everybody's mouth who thought they could make it big over here on Solana. The game is rigged. Not to say you can't win, not to say it's impossible, right? Over on the XRP ledger, I've done very well in the past. I've had like literally no luck over there on Solana, but I've had a tremendous amount of luck over there on the XRP ledger. I do think the market goes through kind of waves. That's why I just haven't been trading meme coins really at all lately. And even when I do, I don't talk about them over here on the channel because I don't want to ever be perceived as somebody who did just that, received allocation, and then I start making YouTube videos about some meme coin, and then people start questioning, wait a minute, did he get an allocation ahead of time? Is he pumping this onto his audience? Which I think about that anytime I see somebody doing that, whether it's XRP meme coins or Solana meme coins. I'm thinking to myself, these guys got in early, they're shilling it to the audience, or they got an early allocation. You know, they're part of the rigged game. But I know from personal experience, it's not impossible to win. But I do also know from personal experience that if you want to win, you legit have to be there 24/7, and you've got to get the rug pulled out from underneath you so many times that you have like a really good risk management strategy. Because the second you get overly confident and you put too much into one, if it's one of the rugs and it surprises you, you're wrecked. So I don't know. Another tangent. Just a happy President's Day, everybody. The stock market's closed today, and I'm on a Monday ramble. If you made it this far into the video, that's amazing. I'm wrapping it up. I put out a monster newsletter over here. It's been received very well. One of my best received newsletters after initial release. And having not even put a video out to announce that I put this thing out, it's the best received newsletter I think I've ever had. It's available over here at blockchainbacker.substack.com. It comes with a 42-minute audio recording. If you'd like something more structured where my thoughts are not bouncing all over the place, but it's very well formatted, go check that out over here at blockchainbacker.substack.com. There's a link down here in the description of my video to the newsletter. But this is what I was working on last week. I know the videos were pretty spotty last week. It's because I was really formulating all my thoughts, and I put it into a monster newsletter. So check that out. Have a wonderful day. I hope you have fun with the kids, the family, whatever. Hopefully you got the day off of work. And otherwise, we'll get back together this week and we'll rock and roll from there. But that's going to be it for this one, guys. Thank you so much for watching. If you could, please like the video and give it a thumbs up. If you're new to the channel, please subscribe and hit the notification bell so you can be notified of when I create new content and when I go live. As always, this is not investment advice and I am not a financial advisor, but if you ever need a pick-me-up or a little bit of reassurance, just remember that the blockchain backers got your back. Have a good one.